In April 2010, two bright college students left their dorm for what should have been a typical Friday night out with friends, but they never returned. Years passed with no answers, no bodies, no closure, just an aching void where two vibrant young women used to be. Then 6 years later, someone noticed a shocking detail in a Google Street View image from their town, triggering a chain of disturbing revelations no one saw coming. The phone rang at 7:43 a.m., jolting Mark from a restless sleep. He fumbled for his cell on the nightstand, squinting at the unfamiliar number. "Hello, Mr. Thompson. This is Detective Rodriguez with Aurora County Police. I need you to come too. The station immediately. We've found something regarding your daughter's case." Mark's heart slammed against his ribs. 6 years. 6 years of sleepless nights, of jumping every time the phone rang, of scanning crowds for a familiar face that never appeared. "What did you find? Is it Sarah? Is she Mr. Thompson? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the station? Just tell me if she's alive or dead." The words scraped his throat raw. "Sir, we discovered remains in the Aurora Alley sewer system, but I need you to understand." Rodriguez paused, and Mark could hear papers shuffling. "The remains we found belonged to May Chin, your daughter's roommate." Mark's legs gave out. He sank onto the edge of his bed, gripping the phone with white knuckles. May, not Sarah? The relief that flooded through him was immediately chased by crushing guilt. May was someone's daughter, too. How he managed. A citizen reported suspicious Google Street View footage from the area. They noticed a man at a car trunk with what appeared to be white material visible. When we investigated the location, we discovered the remains in the sewer system preserved in plastic wrapping. Mark's mind reeled. Google Street View, after 6 years, a random photo from a mapping car had broken the case open. The man in the photo, do you know who he is? We're working on enhancing the image. The citizen who flagged it said something about the man's posture seemed off, like he was struggling with weight in the trunk. We're checking when the Street View car passed through that area. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come in. We're reopening the entire case with new urgency and will need to arraign everyone from 2010. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Mark threw on yesterday's clothes, his hands shaking as he grabbed his keys. The 15-minute drive to the police station passed in a blur of red lights he barely noticed. His mind kept circling back to that Friday night 6 years ago. April 9th, 2010. The girls had gone to Chrome, the popular college club. Sarah had texted him at 10:47 p.m., out with May. "Don't wait up, Dad, love you." It was the last message he ever received from her. The police station's fluorescent lights felt too bright as Mark walked through the entrance. Detective Rodriguez met him in the lobby. A woman in her 40s with serious eyes and prematurely grey streaks in her black hair. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming. Please follow me." She led him to a small conference room where evidence bags lay on the table. Mark's stomach churned when he saw a muddied student ID card in one of them. Even through the plastic and dirt, he recognized Mokhan's bright smile from the photo. "This was found with the body," Rodriguez said gently. "The preservation in plastic helped maintain certain evidence. We're running DNA tests now." "Their dorm room," Mark said suddenly. "When we went there after they disappeared, everything was exactly as they'd left it." Sarah's economics textbook was still open on her desk. Chapter 12. I remember because she'd highlighted nearly every line. May's coffee mug was half full on her nightstand. Still had lipstick marks on the rim. Rodriguez nodded, taking notes. Those details were in the original file. We photographed everything. 2 20-year-old women don't just vanish without taking anything. No clothes, no money from their accounts, no cell phone activity after that night. The street view footage, can I see it? Rodriguez pulled out a printed screenshot. The image was grainy, showing a man in dark clothing bent over an open car trunk. The angle only caught his back and side profile, but white plastic was clearly visible in the trunk's interior. The timestamp read June 15th, 2010, just 2 months after the girls vanished. We're having tech enhance this, checking traffic cameras from the area, anything that might give us a clearer image or license plate. The fact that he was moving May's body suggests she stopped herself, suggests Sarah might still be alive somewhere. Mark finished. That's what you're thinking. We can't jump to conclusions, but yes, it's a possibility we're exploring. A knock on the door interrupted them. An officer leaned in. Detective, the Chens are here. Mark's chest tightened. Through the conference room window, he saw May's parents in the waiting area. Mrs. Chen clutched her husband's arm, her face a mask of devastation. Mr. Chen stared at nothing, looking like he'd aged 20 years in a morning. I should, Mark stood. Take your time, Rodriguez said. Mark walked to the waiting area on unsteady legs. When Mrs. Chen saw him, she let out a sound that was part sob, part wail. He opened his arms and she collapsed against him, her small frame shaking with grief. My baby, she whispered in accented English. My baby girl. Mr. Chen joined the embrace, and the 3 parents stood there, bound by shared loss. Mark held them, while guilt ate at him from the inside. He was grateful, sickeningly, selfishly grateful that it wasn't Sarah's body in that sewer, that he still had hope, while the Chuns had only devastating certainty. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Detective Rodriguez gave them time before gently separating them. We're going to find who did this, she promised the Chens and Mr. Thompson. We're not giving up on finding Sarah. This discovery changes everything. Whoever took them made a mistake, and that Google footage is going to help us find him. Mark nodded. But as he looked at the Chens' shattered faces, he wondered if finding the truth would bring any real peace to any of them. Mark couldn't go home. Not yet. Instead, he found himself turning toward the university, drawn by an inexplicable need to retrace his daughter's last known steps. The campus looked exactly the same, yet entirely different. Exit Hall, Sarah's old dorm, still stood like a brick, monument to his memories. Mark parked and walked through the main entrance, the familiar smell of industrial cleaner and microwave popcorn hitting him immediately. The same bulletin boards lined the walls, their cork surfaces peppered with colorful flyers. But instead of 2010's announcements for Spring Formal and Economic Study Group, he now saw Pride Week 2016 and Climate Action Committee. The carpet was the same, worn thin in the middle from thousands of students' footsteps. The burgundy pattern, faded but unmistakable. A group of girls rushed past him, laughing about someone's Instagram story. They looked so young, so carefree, just like Sarah and May had been. Mark climbed to the 3rd floor, room 312. He stood outside what had been their room, listening to the muffled sound of today's occupants. Music he didn't recognize, voices discussing a chemistry exam. These students had no idea that 2 girls had vanished from this very room, leaving behind lives interrupted mid-sentence. Leaving the dorm, Mark drove the familiar route to Chrome nightclub, or what used to be Chrome. The neon sign was gone, replaced by a sun-faded Felice banner. The windows were covered with brown paper, edges curling from age and weather. He parked and walked the perimeter, taking photos with his phone. The surrounding businesses told their own story of time's passage. The Subway shop was now a vegan cafe. The 24-hour copy center had become a phone repair store, but some things remained. Crossroads Bar still occupied the corner spot, its brick facade and green awning unchanged. Murphy's Pub, another student hangout from 2010, was boarded up. The Velvet Room, once notorious for its lax ID checks, had been converted into a yoga studio. Mark photographed each storefront, remembering how the police had methodically visited every establishment in 2010. Detective Morrison, Rodriguez's predecessor, had personally interviewed every employee, collected every piece of security footage. Crossroads Bar had been checked too, Mark recalled. The owner then had insisted no one saw the girls that night. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Local news is setting up at Aurora Alley. Thought you should know a friend. Mark drove toward Aurora Alley, his chest tightening as he approached. Sure enough, 3 news vans had claimed spots along the street. Reporters were setting up cameras, angling for shots of the sewer grate where May had been found. By tonight, her face would be on every local channel. Maybe that was good. Maybe someone would remember something they'd forgotten or been too afraid to mention 6 years ago. At home, Mark opened his laptop and logged into Facebook. The Find Sarah and May page, which he'd created 2 weeks after their disappearance, showed 47 notifications. His hands trembled as he clicked through. The news had broken. May's discovery dominated the feed. Over 200 new comments had appeared since morning. Just heard about May. Praying Sarah comes home safe. I remember them from Psych 101. This is heartbreaking. Whoever did this is a monster. Hope they catch him. Old classmates were sharing the news story, adding their own memories. Sarah's freshman roommate posted a photo Mark had never seen. Sarah and May laughing at some dorm party, red Solo cups in hand, so young and alive it made his chest ache. Then he saw the message notification. Pete Garrison, the name wasn't familiar. Mark clicked open the private message. Mr. Thompson, I saw the news about May Chen. I'm devastated. I owned Crossroads Bar on University Avenue. I know police talked to us back in 2010, but I recently had a conversation with a former bartender who worked that night. He mentioned something about serving 2 Asian girls matching Sarah and May's description. He didn't think much of it at the time, but after seeing today's news, I felt I had to reach out. Would you be willing to meet? I'd prefer to discuss this with you before contacting police, as I want to be sure the information is accurate. I'm at the bar now, if you're available. Mark stared at the message. After 6 years of nothing, suddenly a witness emerges. His fingers hovered over the keyboard as he typed a reply. I can be there within the hour. Pete responded immediately. Thank you. I feel terrible this information come out sooner. The bartender only mentioned it recently during a casual phone call. We were catching up, and somehow that night came up. I'll explain everything when you arrive. Mark leaned back, unease prickling his spine. Police had interviewed everyone at Crossroads in 2010. The owner, then, was it the same person, had been adamant that no one saw the girls. Why would a bartender suddenly remember serving them 6 years later? And why contact him instead of going straight to police? Still, any lead was better than the nothing he'd lived with for 6 years. Mark grabbed his keys, hope and suspicion warring in his chest as he headed for the door. Crossroads Bar sat on the corner like it had for decades, its green awning faded, but intact. Mark pushed through the heavy wooden door, his eyes adjusting to the dim interior. The place was empty except for a man behind the bar, presumably Pete Garrison, Mr. Thompson. The man looked to be in his early 50s, stocky build with thinning hair and a practiced smile. "I'm Pete. Thank you for coming so quickly." Mark approached the bar, taking in the typical college dive atmosphere, worn bar stools, sports memorabilia on the walls, the lingering smell of stale beer and fried food. "Can I get you something? Beer? Coffee?" Pete was already reaching for a pint glass. "Just water, thanks. I want to hear about this bartender." Pete filled the pint glass with beer anyway, sliding it across the bar. "You look like you need it. Hell of a day for you, I'm sure. As a father myself, I can't imagine what you're going through." He paused, leaning forward. "The news said they found Mokhan's body. Were you there when they discovered it? I mean, what kind of evidence was with the body?" Mark frowned at the beer, but took a reflexive sip. The police didn't share many details. Of course. Pete nodded rapidly. "But they must have found something, right? DNA evidence. The news mentioned something about Google Street View. Footage. Did they show you that? Why do you need to know about evidence?" Mark set down the glass harder than intended. Pete raised his hands. "Sorry, I'm just trying to understand the situation. Where exactly did they find her? The news just said Aurora Alley, but that's a long stretch. And the condition of the body, was it well preserved? I mean, after 6 years." Mark's unease deepened. "Let's talk about your bartender. The one who remembers serving Sarah and May, right?" "Yes." Pete wiped down the already clean bar. "Tommy Chen, different Chen, no relation to your daughter's friend, good kid. Worked here for about 3 years. We were catching up last week, and somehow that night came up. Where is Tommy now? I'd like to speak with him directly." Pete's smile faltered. "He moved out west. Colorado, I think Denver area, you think? Well, it might have been Arizona, Phoenix, or Tucson. We lost touch after he moved." Mark stared at him. "You just spoke to him last week, but you're not sure what state he lives in." It was a quick call. "Look, I have his old employment record somewhere. Let me check the office." Pete gestured vaguely toward the back. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll just be a minute." As Pete disappeared through a door behind the bar, Mark stood and surveyed the room more carefully. The layout was typical. Main bar area, a few booth tables, restrooms, down a hallway. But what caught his attention was a heavy door marked storage. Employees only near the restroom corridor. Unlike the other doors, this one had an electronic keypad lock, its small red light glowing in the dim bar lighting. Mark walked closer, pretending to head for the restroom. The door was reinforced steel, painted to match the walls, but clearly newer than the surrounding structure. Why would a bar storage area need that level of security? Beer kegs and liquor. Inventory hardly warranted an electronic lock. He shook his head. He was being paranoid. The news about May, the stress of the day, it was making him see sinister possibilities everywhere. Plenty of businesses had upgraded security systems, found something. Pete's voice made Mark jump. The bar owner emerged with a piece of notebook. Paper. Tommy made notes about that night. He always was detail-oriented. Mark returned to the bar, accepting the handwritten page. His eyes widened as he read April 9th, 2010. Two Asian girls, early 20s, one wearing white skirt with pink top ordered vodka cranberry, other in jeans and blue sweater, ordered rum and coke, mentioned coming from Chrome, left around 1:30 a.m. This is very specific for something he just remembered recently, Mark said slowly. Like I said, Tommy had a great memory. Pete's eyes kept flicking up toward the corner of the room. Mark followed his gaze to a security camera pointed at the entrance. These details, what they were wearing, what they ordered. Your bartender remembered all this from a casual conversation 6 years later. Pete shifted uncomfortably. Some people just have minds for that kind of thing. I should take this to Detective Rodriguez immediately. Mark folded the paper. Wait. Pete's hand shot out, not quite touching Mark, but hovering near his arm. I mean, shouldn't we verify everything first? Make sure the details are accurate. I might have more records in my files at home, employment schedules, maybe even old security footage backed up somewhere. Security footage from 2010. We upgraded systems a few years back, but I never threw out the old drives. Why don't you come back tomorrow? Give me time to dig through everything. We want to be sure before we involve the police, right? Mark studied Pete's face. Sweat beaded on the man's forehead, despite the bar's cool temperature. His eagerness to delay police involvement set off every alarm in Mark's head. I appreciate your help, Mark said carefully, pocketing the note. I'll think about it. Pete's smile looked forced. Of course, take your time. I just want to help however I can, as a father myself. You mentioned that. Mark headed for the door. I'll be in touch. As he left, he could feel Pete's eyes following him. In his car, Mark pulled out his phone and scrolled to Detective Rodriguez's number. Something was very wrong with Pete Garrison, and the detective needed to know. Mark pulled out of Crossroads Bar's parking lot, but only drove half a block before pulling over. His hands shook as he found Detective Rodriguez's number in his phone. Rodriguez, Detective, it's Mark Thompson. I just met with Pete Garrison, the owner of Crossroads Bar. Something's very wrong. Slow down, Mr. Thompson. Tell me what happened. Mark kept his eyes on the bar's entrance through his rear-view mirror as he spoke. He contacted me through Facebook, claimed a former bartender remembered serving the girls that night, but he was obsessed with what evidence you found. He kept asking about DNA, where exactly May's body was discovered, how well preserved it was. Go on. When I asked for the bartender's contact info, he couldn't keep his story straight. First, the guy was in Colorado, then Arizona, and he had this handwritten note with incredibly specific details about what the girls wore, what they drank. Things nobody would remember from a casual phone conversation 6 years later. Where are you now? Parked down the street from the bar. Detective, when I mentioned bringing the information to you, he panicked, insisted we needed to verify details. First, he wants me to come back tomorrow. Stay where you are. Don't approach him again. We'll look into Pete Garrison immediately. There's something else. The bar has this reinforced door with an electronic lock leading to what's supposedly just storage. It seemed like overkill for Mark stopped mid-sentence. Pete had emerged from the bar's front entrance. Even from a distance, Mark could see the man's agitated movements. Pete looked up and down the street, his head swiving nervously, then hurried toward the alley that ran alongside the building. He just came outside, Mark whispered, though there was no way Pete could hear him. He's going into the alley. Mr. Thompson, do not follow him. We'll send, I'm just going to drive by. I won't stop. Mark ended the call before Rodriguez could protest. He started his car and drove slowly past the alley mouth. Pete was at a service entrance near the back, fumbling with keys. He kept glancing over his shoulder, his movements jerky and desperate. Mark circled the block and passed by again. This time, Pete was dragging something from the service door. Industrial cleaning supplies. Mark's stomach clenched as he identified them: a large jug of bleach, a box of heavy-duty garbage bags, and what looked like a commercial carpet cleaner, the kind used by professional cleaning services. Pete's frantic energy was unmistakable. He hefted the supplies toward a basement access door, separate from the main service entrance. His shirt was soaked with sweat, and he kept pausing to scan the alley as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. Mark forced himself to keep driving. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to confront Pete, to demand answers about Sarah. But Rodriguez was right.